Well, hello everybody. I'd recently posted two separate video series on the automatic transmission rebuild. The first one being tearing it down, and the second one being obtaining all the parts and putting it all back together. Excuse me. I'd received a personal message from someone that kind of wanted me to answer some questions in a video form, so this is a Q&A to that. They didn't express that it'd be okay to use their name, so I'm going to refrain from doing so because some people like to maintain their anonymity, so I'm going to respect that by default. So moving into it, it starts out and says, okay, I'm completely amazed at the disassembly and reassembly of the transmission. I'd like to think I could do it as well, but always thought the insides of a transmission were beyond anyone without proper tools. With that being said, there are a couple of questions that I would like to see answered in another video. Well, I'm doing that right now. To start with, it's certainly easier if you've got the proper tool for the job. You can get by with a little creativity, being careful not to create damage because you're trying to fix something. So you have to be methodical and slow and try something, slowly going into it. If it's not working, don't keep pressing it, back out and try another avenue. That's kind of what I did on the video. It would have been much easier to have the proper tools to compress snap ring, compress the spring so I could get a snap ring on and stuff like that. But I made do. It's just an illustration on what can be done. But moving into the questions directly, what is your system to keep the parts separate and organized so you can remember all the keepers, springs, and ball bearings? Well, to me, that's the valve body specifically that he's asking about. And it started right here with a blue paper towel. There were two halves of that. There was an upper half and a lower half. So on the upper half, I counted the valves. Let's say there were 5, and I put U1, U2, U3, U4, and U5. I actually wrote it on the towel. So as those pieces came out, they got laid exactly where they needed to be on the towel. Let's say there were 10. When I went to clean those parts, that valve 1 assembly would come with me. I would clean it, blow it off, dry it off, and lay it on a fresh clean towel that was also marked. Laid them all out, cleaned every assembly section one at a time. After they were cleaned, they went in simply to a Ziploc bag labeled corresponding to this, and they got set aside until they were ready to go back in. When it came time to do that, they got laid out on a towel just like they were, and then I started inserting them in the holes. Same went with the bottom half. I used U1, and then I used, let's say, B1 for the bottom one. So that's how I did that. Where do you go to find a kit for something like that? Hard to believe they make a kit. Well, actually they do. There's many different types of kits you can get, even for a specific transmission, and I'll explain that. But where I got it is a place called Whatever It Takes Transmission Parts, and they seem to be semi-nationwide. They're in a lot of states, and I actually had a local presence in my area. Their website is wittrans.com. Plug in your transmission, walk through it, it'll show it, and then you can pick out parts or pick out a kit, things of that nature. Now, they typically start with just an overhaul kit, which is gaskets, seals, and all the rubber items like O-rings and things like that. Just a basic overhaul kit. Then it moves into what's called a banner kit. It's that overhaul kit, but it includes the friction material. Then they move into, I think it's a master kit, which includes the overhaul kit, the banner kit, and then all the steels, the steel plates. And that's the one I went with. Now mine had bonded pistons in there, and that's something I had to purchase outside of that. But that's where I got it, and yep, they do sell kits. Most importantly, your workspace is like a surgeon's table. Where did you get the small tools you use, a pick, tweezer, etc.? They appeared to be immensely helpful, and they absolutely are. And while doing something like that, you hit the key word, surgeon's table. You have to be clean and organized, coming apart and going together so you can make sure everything goes to the same location. To answer the question on these picks and things, I can say this little kit right here They came out of Pakistan. They're not that great. I picked these up probably 15 years ago at a flea market, and they were new in the box. I don't know, I spent a few bucks for them. Then I got turned on. These are the ones I was really using in the video. They're a little bit of a nicer quality, a little bit heavier, more appropriate for things like that. This one actually kind of went around. It's been snapped off, but I want to say I picked these up years ago at like Ace Hardware or something like that. All these forceps and these tweezers are exactly that. These are actual surgeon's tools. I've had a couple, 2 or 3 of these. I don't recall where I got them. My wife's uncle passed away. He did something with the VA, and in his estate, these were in his toolbox. So that's where I got these. Now, Harbor Freight does sell a variety of these, and I think they're $3 or $4 a piece. They don't call them forceps. They call them maybe clamping, locking pliers or something along those lines. I just dug around on their website and found them. I put in forceps, but they call them something else. I cannot speak for the quality of them, but these are actual surgeon's tools and they do work great. And these are great for getting in small places and picking things up. This one has got a couple pieces of rubber tubing on. This is good for clamping maybe a small gas line on a weed trimmer or something like that to keep fuel in the tank. I use these for soldering sometimes to hold wires or small bits together so I can do my soldering. These tweezers are another actual surgeon's tool. I just do not know exactly what they're for, but they're unique in the sense where you can clamp something and slide this up and it will hold it. These are useful for soldering or holding things like that. And then these are just big tweezers that are almost like an alligator right here. Very, very handy. These things are great to use for things like that. Picks and things you can get at Harbor Freight. You could probably get all of this there. Like I said, I do not know of the quality. And then finally, most importantly, how did you clean everything? That always seems to be a major sticking point for me, even when I clean a carburetor. How do you make it clean again? Well, this may be a little bit long, but a whole host of items. When things came apart, if they were really nasty, I simply started with a pail outside with a little gasoline in it and a stiff brush and just got the majority of it off there. Then it would come into my shop and get cleaned again with either 50-50 purple power or maybe 50-50 simple green. Sometimes I would break out carburetor cleaner if even the gasoline wasn't working on it. But my general regimen is solvent, hot water, and air. That's how I clean parts, steel parts, aluminum parts, things like that. I clean them in a solvent to get them clean. I rinse them with hot water to get the solvent off, and it also warms the material up. And then I blow all the water off, or the majority of it, with air, and then set it down, and the heat will evaporate the rest of the moisture. They will have a tendency to flash rust if you just immediately start touching things, so I try not to do that. I'll handle them and set it down. But in this case, I did. A light coating of oil will prevent that from happening. The case itself, where it was real nasty on the outside, Meguiar's hot rims, tire, and wheel cleaner to get all the heavy, nasty stuff off. Did that outside, maybe a toothbrush, something to scrape with, cleaned it a couple of times, and it came out nice and clean. Now, using purple power on aluminum is not really advised. I do it. I will clean aluminum parts with purple power, but I don't allow the parts to stay in the solution. I clean them, it gets rinsed off, and I've never had any ill effects. Speaking of the carburetor, I use a ultrasonic cleaner also from Harbor Freight. It works great for cleaning up the carburetors. I get the gunk off first, the heavy stuff, maybe with gasoline, give it a cursory cleaning, then break it apart and put it in the parts cleaner. It comes out, hot water, and blown off with compressed air. Really enjoy your channel. Seems like you can do anything. Well, thank you. I try, and that's one thing of why I'm successful in a lot of the things I do attack, is I don't stop. I'm relentless. I will not let something beat me. So it's just a matter of stepping through things, methodically. Having the manual certainly helps. But this is kind of an answer to those questions. It may help some other folks out as well. A little bit long here, but thanks for watching, and good luck.